For Louisiana versus all y'all, Jarrett Roser here again with Brett McCormick. We looked at that crazy play at the plate in the SEC tournament, and now we're back to look at some more officiating and LSU baseball right in the thick of it. Kind of unsurprisingly this time of year, it seems like LSU has a knack for being in the middle of some plays that leave fans either just wanting a little bit more explanation or often a little bit more up in arms. But we're going to look at a couple of runner sliding interference plays from this weekend's regional up at Chapel Hill. And Brett, thanks again for joining, even though I guess if you're going to wear some Duke stuff on the show, it might as well be right after LSU played North Carolina.
Yeah, man. Well, I know you're a Carolina guy, so but that's basketball.
Don't tell people that this week. I was for sure not wanting any good things for North Carolina this weekend on the baseball diamond.
Well, it's there's always tiers of our fandom, right? Louisiana first, and then it goes from there. But this is a Zion jersey, so I'm a big Zion guy. So,
well, let's jump right into the main one we're going to focus on that I do think was a little bit more questionable of a call and came with a little bit more controversy was from that Saturday game between LSU and North Carolina, and was LSU on the base paths, Alex Milazzo on first, and ends up being an issue, it seems like, with his slide on the review of that play. And it kind of caught me and I think a lot of people off guard because of some of the delay to it as well. But ultimately, North Carolina gets granted a double play because of interference and gets out of the inning. And this is kind of where we're looking at starting this back from the beginning on the pitch.
So, yeah, I mean, a pretty great play by the second baseman, and it just seems routine right here. Shortstop catches the ball, throws to first, and it's not in time. But then they come up with an interference call here, and as this thing plays forward, like there comes a time where, like, I know why they called this interference, but it goes back to what I talked about in the last time we talked about this. Like, we need to call the obvious as officials, and I don't think that this is obvious. And I think when fans are watching this, they're like, well, it's pretty obvious there's no interference. There's no obstruction. But, we looked up the rule here, and the rule is basically he has to do a couple of things. He has to get to the ground before the base. The runner must slide on the ground and in a direct line between the two bases. So between first and second, he has the width of that base, and he's got to get to the ground, which I think Alex did a great job of getting to the ground before. But we can have an issue on the width of the slide. And if we stop it here let it go, and like pause it right here, well, you can't really see it on this angle, but as he starts to slide, as you see him running, his right leg is going to be he's a little to the right as he gets down. And then when he finishes, see right here, you can see he's a little to the right of the bag here. And when he finishes his slide, he's going to finish on top of the bag. So I know that's why they called it right here. He's to the right, but there's he doesn't delay the throw. He doesn't make contact with the shortstop. He doesn't impact or interfere, in my opinion, with the play at all. And so it goes back to me. This is purely a judgment call by the second base umpire here. But I think, we're making a mountain out of a molehill here. This is not obvious interference. We need to call the obvious. And by the letter of the law, he's a little bit to the right of the bag. And that's why they called it. And when they go back and they looked at the replay, that's what they saw. But again, that doesn't impact the play at all. There's no look at the shortstop. He catches, he turns, he throws. No delay in his motion. There's no contact. There's no interference, in my opinion. But the rule says they have to slide directly into second base, which he doesn't until he finishes on top of the bag as he kind of turns. But in my opinion, you're making a big deal out of something that's not a big deal here. And I don't believe from a judgment standpoint, I don't see how they could go to replay, look at that, and say, yeah, he interfered with the shortstop making the throw to first base. He didn't.
Mm-hmm.
So
what are this is, I guess, kind of a similar question to some of the aspect we talked about with that play at the plate last week with Brady Neal in the SEC tournament. But what is that conversation like? I mean, on a replay situation, I don't know how much of the conversation is continuing, but when you're talking about calling the obvious, understanding what the letter of the law may say, but also realizing, does this actually interfere with the player or impact the play? What does that conversation look like with a team of officials at times when you're kind of weighing, okay, I like, this is what this says, but is that, how do we find kind of the right place to land on this in those situations as a group?
So there's a difference between the officials on the field getting together, talking about the rule, making sure they get the rule correct, and then going to replay. Because when you go to the replay center, then you get other people involved. And so the conversation is between the crew chief and the replay center. And so what they're doing is they're checking, well, what are the things that make this slide illegal? And there's 5 things that make it illegal. Did he slide or run out of the baseline in the direction of the fielder? No, I don't believe he did. Oh, they obviously said yes, that he slid towards, out of the base to the shortstop. I don't believe he did. Did he use a rolling or cross-body slide? And I think this is where they kind of get it, because when he slides, he finishes, you can see his body kind of turns a little bit from right to left so he can finish on top of the bag. So I could see, yeah, maybe he uses a rolling slide there. Is his leg raised to make contact higher than the fielder's knee? No. Did he slash or kick the fielder? No. Or did he illegally slide toward or contact the fielder? No. So again, this is, you could say, one, he starts his slide outside towards the shortstop, and then he rolls to finish on top of the bag. But again, I don't know how that conversation with replay comes out with, yes, he interfered the shortstop's ability to make an out at first base, because it's clear he doesn't. Shortstop catches, steps off, throws all in one motion. There's no interference. So again, it goes back to a philosophical thing. There's the letter of the law, and then is it what we call an elephant? Is it obvious? Call the obvious. And I don't believe here that this was obvious. Now, you may find some baseball umpires that disagree with me, and they say the letter of the law, he was outside the bag, that's interference. I just disagree from a judgment standpoint on that.
And then a less impactful play at the time, or less controversial for sure, in last night's game, the winner take all regional championship, we end up with somewhat of a role reversal early on in the game where North Carolina has the bases loaded and hits into a double play, which LSU completes smoothly, but they review the play anyway. And we were talking about, just, it became interesting to see that play because there had already been a sliding controversy at some point in the regional, but also, speak to, I think a lot of us as we watch that are thinking, why are we reviewing this when they completed the double play anyway? But it had something to do with the other side of the dime.
Yeah, it goes to the penalty. What's the penalty? The penalty is both the runner and the batter are out and nobody advances. So in that situation, it would be they're reviewing to see, is there interference? We know the batter and the runner are out, but do the runners who advanced need to go back to where they started? And so I have no problem whatsoever with the use of replay or the proliferation of the use of replay. Let's get it right. And so I have no problem with them going and seeing. And I thought they came out with the right call. It was not interference, and, got to double play and the runners advanced. But I think the biggest issue that fans have is, if we're going to use replay, which, some people say it slows down the game, they don't like it. As an official, I don't mind it. Like, let's get it right. But if you're going to use it and you're going to go, and then you come out and you still have a play where the fans are like, how is that right? Like, it doesn't make sense. So if we're going to use it, we need to use it and get it right. So that's my take from an officiating standpoint is like, get it right, but call the obvious.
Yeah. And as much as we, Louisiana, whatever, would have liked to see the Tigers come out of the game Monday night and be potentially hosting a super regional next weekend, I do think they got that call correct on Monday night. No interference. And so the run scores from North Carolina, unfortunately, ends up being an extra inning game, and the Tigers lose by a run late. But I don't really put a lot of controversy into that play itself, but thought worth pointing out there as we continue to kind of find pieces relevant to Louisiana fans to kind of talk through some officiating dynamics. And Brett, appreciate you again.
Yeah, man. And hopefully as we move forward and we look at some more of these, we'll have some plays where like we can break it down and how they got it 100% correct. And I'm not sitting here saying from a judgment standpoint, I think they got it wrong, but it happens to be these two, in my personal opinion. I just think they made something out of nothing. Again, for the second time.
Again, he's Brett McCormick. He's made a point to say he doesn't consider himself an officiating expert. For our standards, he is essentially Louisiana versus all y'all's officiating expert. Certainly someone that can help with his background calling games in a variety of sports and at multiple levels, can help kind of shine some light on some of these things that we're watching, whether it be on, Fridays, Saturdays, baseball, football, basketball. And so looking forward to continue to do that with Brett. And thank you, Brett, for your time, man.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it.
Yeah, he's Brett McCormick. I'm Jarrett Roser. Thank y'all for watching Louisiana versus all y'all.